Because of the increased amount of ways that employees can become distracted at work today with things such as social media, cell phones, there's an ever more paramount need to know how to properly motivate employees. Now, there's a number of different ways that you can motivate your employees, but through this presentation, I'm going to show you one effective method of using the goal setting, equity, and expectancy theories together in tandem. Now, why is it important to motivate employees? Well, for one, there's this company called Udemy Inc. It's an online learning platform aimed at reaching professional adults. And they recently did a survey where they found out that over 70% of workers admit to being easily distracted at work. So that means that over 2/3 of workers don't feel motivated or challenged to perform at a high level, but would rather just spend time surfing the web or on Facebook or on their phones. So you can see how that affects employees and how they accomplish their work. And then also there's this company called Paycheck Inc. It's an American provider of payroll, human resource, and benefits outsourcing services. And they also did a survey that they called Lost Minutes, Employee Time Wasting Examined. And in their research, they found that some of the top reasons that employees admitted to having a lack of motivation in doing their work came from these three areas that we're going to talk about a little bit today. One is being unsatisfied with work. The second is having a lack of work. And the third is to have no incentive to work harder. So those are three of the top five. And like I said, we're going to talk about how to combat those things through this presentation. And then number three, which I think is the biggest reason, would be money. So there's this company called Harman IE. It's a software company that provides humanized business and data solutions. And they did a survey entitled, "I Can't Get My Work Done." And through this survey to different employees, they discovered that whenever a company has just one single employee that gets distracted over the course of their work throughout a year, that one employee can lose the company $10,000 in profit. So that's a lot of money from employees who become distracted in their work through social media, being on their phones, whatever it is. So for example, if you were to have a company of 100 employees and 70% of them admit to getting distracted at work, if those 70% of employees who get distracted were to lose you $10,000 apiece, in total, that's $700,000 worth of profit that you've lost for your company. So you can see how important it is to properly motivate employees to not only challenge themselves to grow, but to also help your business grow as well. So in the coming slides, we're going to look at some ways that we can kind of recoup some of that money by motivating employees to work harder and to challenge themselves in their work. We're going to talk about the motivation process, and this is a 3-step process. The first step is creating motivation, and that's through goal setting. So goals create motivation because they give something tangible for your employees to work towards. They give purpose to work, and they challenge employees to work harder. But as you can see through this process, it's not only important just to set goals, but the next step is to set relatable, attainable goals, which goes into the expectancy theory. So you have to find goals that aren't too hard to accomplish, but are also challenging at the same time. There's a sweet spot for goals that make your employees work harder, but also doesn't make them think that it's impossible to achieve those goals. And then the last step in this process is to reward employees for achieving goals, which goes into the equity theory, that you need to reward employees for the amount of work that they put in to achieving goals. So for example, I worked for a company that didn't do a great job of doing this. They created goals for their employees, but the goals were so hard that less than 10% of employees actually accomplished those goals. And then the reward for accomplishing those goals was only like a couple $100. So for a lot of employees, it wasn't even worth it to motivate themselves to do extra work because the full motivation process wasn't gone through. The goals weren't attainable, and there wasn't an adequate reward for achieving those goals. So through these slides, we're going to talk about the proper way to motivate your employees so they get more work done and help increase your business. So why is it important to do this first step for your employees to set goals? Well, one, goals align and unite your focus. So you as the goal setter can choose what your focus is for your company. If you want your company to be great at customer service, then you can set goals that help your employees focus on customer service. Like you can set a goal for only allowing employees to have so many complaints through a month or whatever it is, but you can set the focus of what your company is going to be. And then that rolls right into how goals can trigger desired behaviors. So the goals that you can set can actually align with the behaviors that you want your employees to have. For example, if you want your employees to be punctual and show up to work on time, then you can set a goal to have employees, show up to work early, and you can reward them for doing that. And that will trigger the desired behavior that you have for your employees. And then also goals create and sustain momentum. So if you don't create goals and give your employees something to work at, then they're never going to want to go above and beyond the status quo for their work. And as you create these goals and as your employees meet these goals, then it creates a sense of momentum because they want to keep meeting and attaining the goals because it creates a sense of accomplishment. So as they keep accomplishing goals, they're going to want to continue to do that and meet more and more goals, and it creates a sense of momentum for companies. And then there's this great quote that I found. It says, "Motivation is like a car without cruise control. Take your foot off the gas and it slows down." So you can't just expect that once you create a goal that you don't have to create more goals, or once you've created motivation that you can just stop. Because once you stop, your company and your employees are just going to slow down again. So you have to continue to create motivation for your companies. And the best way to do that is by continually setting goals for your employees. And so in the goal setting theory, we learned that goals act as motivators to focus employee efforts on achieving certain performance outcomes. So once again, you can create goals for whatever you want your employees to accomplish, whatever performance outcomes you desire, and this creates a sense of motivation to help them accomplish those goals that you want them to accomplish for your company. And then setting goals can also positively affect performance because goals help employees direct their efforts and attention towards the outcome. It helps them mobilize their efforts, and it helps them develop consistent behavior patterns and also create strategies to obtain desired outcomes. So once again, just creating goals helps you focus your employees on the things that you want them to do for your business. And then not only do you have to create goals, but you also have to create relatable, attainable goals, which also falls under the expectancy theory. So there is this company called Willis Towers Watson, and it's a global multinational risk management, insurance brokerage, and advisory company. And they recently did this study where they found that 93% of employees say they can't translate goals into actions if the goals are irrelevant to them. So that shows the need to set goals that are relatable to your employees and the things that they would like to accomplish. And then also Psychology Today created this article called How to Set Goals, and it talks about how employees need the right resources at their disposal, the necessary skills or training, and management that provides support. So once again, you can't just create goals, but you have to create goals that are relatable to your employees, and then you also have to help them accomplish those goals. And a great way to do that is through the SMART method of goal setting, which is to be specific, to be measurable, to create attainable goals, to be relevant, and to also be time-based. And then talking about the expectancy theory and how this rolls into goal setting, the expectancy theory says that motivation depends not only on how much you want something, but also on how likely you are to get it. So once again, like we just saw on the previous slide, it's not about just setting goals, but it's about setting relatable goals that relate to your employees, but also setting attainable goals where you help them and set goals that are easy for them to reach. And like you see on the slide, if you are confident that you have the ability, skills, and opportunity to accomplish a goal, then you will actually attempt to accomplish it. But in contrast, if you do not believe that you are likely to get what you want, you're not going to be motivated to try to get it, even though you might really, really want it. So once again, setting goals for your employees is great, but you have to make sure that they feel that those goals are attainable and that you are there to help them achieve those goals. That is the proper way to motivate employees. And then comes the next step in the motivation process, which I would argue is probably the most important step, is rewarding the achievement of goals. Because no employee is just going to want to achieve the goals that you want them to achieve unless you give them some kind of reward for doing it. This is known as the input-output ratio. But as you can see on the screen, that employees are more motivated and inspired to work when there is a reward tied to their work. For example, I have a 2-year-old daughter who we've just potty trained, and she was not motivated to use the potty at all until we would give her a reward of candy. And once she saw that there was a reward tied to her work, then she picked up on the potty training and was willing to learn. And the same thing applies for employees as well. They're never going to want to do what you want them to do unless you give them some kind of reward for doing it. And then also, employees expect that each person receives a reward that is proportional to their inputs. And we're going to talk a little bit about that input-output ratio and how rewards need to be equal to the amount of work that employees put into their work. So this is referred to as the equity theory. And the equity theory is how much people are willing to contribute to an organization. It depends on the fairness, equity of the rewards they will receive in exchange. So for example, each worker is going to develop their own personal input-output ratio by taking stock of their own contributions, which is their input in the work that they do, their time, their effort, their skills, whatever it is, and they're going to balance that against the outputs of what the company is offering them for their work, such as rewards, benefits, recognition, whatever it is. And this is known as the input-output ratio, that employees are going to look at the work that they put in versus the reward they will get from that work to decide if they're actually motivated to do work or not. So managers should try to avoid these equity problems by ensuring that rewards are distributed proportionally, equally, and on the basis of performance. So managers need to work really hard to reward employees proportionally to the amount of work that they put into achieving a goal. Because if employees work super, super hard to achieve a goal and then get a very, very small reward for actually accomplishing that goal, then they're never going to be motivated to continue to accomplish more and more goals. So as you can see, it's super, super important to have these three things work together in one process of setting the goals, but making the goals relatable to employees, but also attainable. And then you also have to properly reward employees for the work that they've done. And if you do these three things in unison, then you will create motivation for your employees. And like we saw in the first slide, that if employees are unmotivated, they can lose your company money, about $10,000 an employee. But if your employees are motivated, then you can actually retain more of your employees because they feel like their work brings them purpose and is making them better and is challenging them. And also you improve your business in the form of more profits and a better product for your customers. So it is absolutely essential to take the time to motivate your employees.